it always takes 3 times longer and it's 3 times harder than you think it will be. But you will be surprised what you can achieve.
Hi, I'm Mike Pincus, co-founder at Connect CPA and your host at GrowthTales. Today, we have a really exciting guest in Solon Angel. Solon has over 2 decades of experience as an entrepreneur and has managed and co-founded companies in the field of software development and technology. He's been a part of business launches, expansions, and he's even helped rescue numerous startups that were on the brink of bankruptcy and turn them around into multi-million-dollar enterprises. Solon knew from a young age he wanted to be known as a prominent immigrant entrepreneur. And in 2015, Solon founded the multi-million-dollar company MindBridge, which became the leading AI-powered financial risk and discovery platform. These days, Solon has now shifted his efforts to applying AI around tax work through his new startup, Taxpay. Despite being a busy founder, Solon continues to share his knowledge, wisdom, and experience with other entrepreneurs to help them reach similar success through the Fresh Founders community. I really enjoyed my conversation with Solon, and I hope you do as well. Hey, Solon, thank you so much for joining me today on GrowthTales.
Pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me.
I've learned a lot about you over the last little while, and I know you're a serial entrepreneur, and I have a ton of respect for the fact that you've built companies in the space that I operate in, obviously on the technology side. But for people that don't know you, I want to start off with your first really big success as an entrepreneur and ask you a little bit about MindBridge. Of what was MindBridge and what is MindBridge, and what were you trying to solve when you built that company?
So, I shared that story a few times, but I did not want to start MindBridge. And it turned out to be my biggest success. I mean, don't get me wrong. Like turning around Solink with Mike it's a success too. It's very successful. Just raised $60 million by Goldman Sachs, and then growing the analytics division of Caseware was from we were less than 20 people. That was not my business, but that's a big successful company too. NeoCase is successful too, but MindBridge is really the one that was most successful from where I got involved, meaning literally walking into the registrar office, right? Asking the lawyer to, taking the last $3,000 of your $10,000 bank account to pay lawyers' fees. Was nervous.
Wow.
I was sitting in my kitchen with 2 babies, big mortgage, having to rebuild myself after a bad adventure, right? Which is what entrepreneurs do, right? Sometimes things work, sometimes they don't. And then, okay, I was hesitant. Say, okay, you're about to take a third of your savings, massive deal. And the reason why is because nobody wanted to do it. I was going around North America at Rutgers University, where there's a forum of continuous assurance and auditing symposium, where all the world experts are coming talking about advanced statistics. And I was shaking my hands AI in 2014, 2015. It's 2013 already. If you Google 2012 Rutgers, Solon Angel on big data, I was already talking about concepts that were the foundations for MindBridge, that in the space of financial reporting and assurance, right? Accuracy and truth in data, essentially, around financial data, there was issues. There was massive issues. I was first row witness of auditors that did not catch Ponzi schemes. Literally, they were using a product of a previous company I was involved in called Caseware, and I was seeing the systemic and endemic rise of financial fraud and white-collar crimes, right? And I remember looking at the data on how many good guys, so bad guys versus good guys. There's 6 billion people on the planet or more, and there's 300 million people in America, which is the number one economy. And the CFOs are saying that the data that we present to the public on financial data on the stock market, we have only less than a 45% confidence on it, meaning 65% of it they are not confident, and that's what the economic financial system relies on: trust, trust in data, trust in the financial reports, and the bad guys are feasting on that. They're white collar crimes, left, right, center, bookkeepers, accountants, executives, if you look at the report to the nation of the Association of Certified Fraud Examiners, it was like it's a pandemic in the last decade. And I felt that, but I didn't know for sure until I met with the FBI on a Ponzi scheme. I was literally several times at the headquarters in DC. By the way, if ever you want to see people that are dedicated to the task, look at the white collar crime division of the RCMP and FBI. They are so understaffed, so underfunded for what they have to do, right? They're fighting, organized crime, terrorist organizations, and then just white collar criminals left, right, and center. And basically, those are the Jedi's because there's only 75,000 certified fraud examiners out there. Less, 500,000 accountants in North America, less than 150,000 auditors, and you have 300 million people. And then in those 300 million, they just decided, who cares about, the rules? I'm like, there's a problem here. This is essentially you're saying the Jedi's have to reestablish order in the general population, but they don't have lightsabers, right? They're going there with like wooden sticks, and I'm like, can someone please give them a lightsaber? It's called deep reinforced learning and adaptive resonance techniques. It's called linear. There was another one we use a lot, Benford's law on the statistics side. It's called tons of techniques around modern techniques around data analytics and advanced statistics. That's how it is called before. And then machine learning was an emerging field. And then I remember seeing, the first DeepMind demo about what it could do, and I'm like, guys, could someone please take those tech and just apply there? So I went to my former employer. They ignored my emails. I went to the largest associations in the US, which actually had kind of a project on the way, but I thought they were going too slow. It turned out they did bring it to the completion, but like way after MindBridge was in market, right, and didn't serve the market yet in depth. And then could someone help the CFOs, right? And MindBridge became all of that, right? I was just going out there saying, could someone please do that? Could someone please do this? Could someone please do that? And then MindBridge and other companies in the space rose to the challenge. So that's how MindBridge started. It was not I was very concerned about the impact it will have at home and on my health to do something of that scale from scratch. I tried to pad the impact as much as possible with a great partnering with great executives and proven entrepreneurs in the space that joined. One of them that took the helm as CEO. And then the third CEO of MindBridge also had a proven record in his field. And that kind of stacked the odds in my favor, right? But that's what MindBridge was. It was the world's first AI auditor. I think we trademarked that even. And the name came from bridging the gap between the human and the machine, right? That's what it is.
Wow. Solon, I didn't know about failed ventures. This is new to me. And I also didn't know, how did you fund things in those early days? Like, I know you raised capital, but like, how did you do it? Like right up?
I work 7 days a week, and I have very very low tolerance for, I don't know how to say it. You just do it. Like, I mean, I had 2 babies, a mortgage, and I work Monday to Friday between 2 or 3 consulting agreements. And then guess what? Sunday afternoon, kids nap, Saturday afternoon, kids nap. That's when I was working. Evening, other people who like to watch TV. I poured 100 emails or 200 emails a night to outreach to do sales on LinkedIn. I would automate my emails to go during daytime, acting as if I was the one emailing during business hours, but I was doing it until 1 a.m. You work your ass off, right? And then very quickly, I attracted angel investors. Some that I had to be more forceful than others because they couldn't comprehend, right? And then I did it the wrong way because I was an expert in the field. Sorry, I'm speaking too fast here. Like, I was an expert in the field of, advanced data analytics for auditors, right? And so I would go to the money markets, and I would go to investors and says, the way we do material assessment is wrong. I'm going to fix that. And people look at me like, what are you talking about? Like construction, right? Like they just. I had to dumb it down for the investors community. Yeah, because I was using expert language, right? I was so deep into and obsessed, and I was saying ART sucks for financial data analysis, money flow theory, and doing analysis of money flows is better, doing regression, and people look at me like, what is he talking about, right? And so I had to distance myself from the action and dumb it down. And so what I did is it was borderline tricky from my perspective, but I had to dumb it and say, I'm going to fight fraud, and everyone understood. And also, I got three to half a million, $1.5 million verbally interested and $300,000 in the bank. And I'm going to. It's like, yeah, fraud is a big deal. And then you can even find articles on the press that says like he's going after a massive project, a massive thing. We should invest in that. There's a lot of that going on, and like, it's like, and then yes, for sure, when we did find fraud, MindBridge has an incredible risk scoring engine, but 99% of the value is accuracy, not in, they call that unintentional errors or intentional errors, right? In reality, there's more often unintentional errors happening and mistakes in the systems than humans. There's more good humans trying to do just a good job than bad humans trying to skew the system.
Right, making mistakes. Yeah.
Yeah, so MindBridge is really good at that, right? Anomaly detection in that scale. But the beginning was hard, man. I think it's not for the faint of heart to have, 2 or 3, do consulting plus, to make sure that you don't miss your mortgage payments, and at the same, at the same time, build something from scratch. And then the gap, luckily the funding environment at the time started getting better in Canada, but I still had to go to the US to attract service capital, right?
Which it's maybe changed a little bit, but it still is the conventional wisdom, I guess, even now, right?
Yeah, it's just a lot of numbers. Canada is like, 30 million people here or something? There's 300 million south of the border. Their economy is more dynamic, and there's more appetite for risk, and their tax code and their whole structure around investing startups is very different, right? I mean, the simple fact that someone that succeeds in my position could start a charity, start doing good work, and writing it off easily without having to be a registered charity and things like that, right? It's very different. Like right now, I'm really passionate about first-time founders below the age of 30 years old. Okay, that's my jam. Like I have 2 to 3, 20 to 25 years old girls and guys that are trying to start a business, and then I'm limited in what I can help them because otherwise it has to impact my lifestyle, right? If I could turn the community that we run into a charity so that everything that goes there, can be tax deductible, I can tell you that that community will grow a lot better, right? A lot faster. So you can't compare the US to Canada. It's not comparable.
Yeah. And for Solon, for MindBridge, as you were like growing, do you mind me asking, how long did it take you to get traction? Like you were doing mortgage payments, babies, like how long did it take you to get like to 7 figures in revenue and beyond? Like when did you get product market fit? Was it years into the business or?
Well, you had product market fit some day one. They're still going after the same first use case of enterprise CFOs, anomaly detection, and also using the CPA firms as partners in that mission, right? Working with them and servicing them. So a very famous guy in Silicon Valley told me, "You're not doing a startup." I'm like, "Okay, what am I doing?" So you're doing you're doing a start first, a start in or something like that. I forgot what he said. Because I was an insider in the industry already, and I was working, like Mark Bernioff was at Siebel, he launched Salesforce. He was in the CRM space. So it was start out, he said. It's a start out. So MindBridge was a start out of Caseware, which is very known, right? So the market fit was there since day one, right? Now, significant revenue, I mean, the first 7 digit was not a big deal for me. The first 8 digit was the big deal. Because all the way to the 8 digit, we didn't have a sense of how predictable, how big the business will be, and how crucial in the ecosystem of tools and apps it needs to be for large enterprises and large accounting firms, right?
And how long did that take, Solon? Like for 8 figures?
Years.
Yeah.
It took years. It took like, but we knew we were on something, even without sales. Forget the sales because they came within 2 to 3 years meaningfully, right? Early on when I went out there, I mean, you have to remember, this was 2015. When you Googled AI, when I bought the .ai domain, there was like 75 or 100 .ai domain, right? Now there's like thousands. I should have just hoarded on .ai domain. I would have made more money than
that would have been a better business model.
but you have to remember, if you Google artificial intelligence, financial reporting, artificial intelligence, auditing, for 3 years there was no one but MindBridge. So I knew I was on something. So also now there's like inbound requests on LinkedIn. My LinkedIn is exploding. The web, we we go to conferences and we have like already traction of interest of people talking to us, asking us, okay, if we don't do it with you, we're trying to do it. There was so much interest so early on that we very quickly capitalized and converted that interest into signed contracts as soon as the product was ready. But even before the product was ready, we were engaged in doing pilots on the core engine that we were building to compare without the proper UI, with things that finished, to compare the way people work, convince them the way they worked on the output basis, not even on fully integrated basis, was already outdated based on the emerging techniques on data visualization and anomaly detection.
Wow. And
we had a very experienced look. I was very and by the way, of course, you look back and you're like, you take it for granted in the moment, and you look back with really deep sense of gratitude and appreciation even more after the fact.
for the
right?
timing, right?
Yeah, the timing was everything. Look, if you look at the ideas, the Idea Lab in California, I tell you, what is it? Look, MySpace, Facebook, the iPhone, and the brilliance of Mark Zuckerberg to jump on the mobile app right away made Facebook, right? There's a reason why Instagram is all the rage now. It was really mobile native more than Facebook, right? Again, his brilliance to stay afloat and not mess around with the innovator's dilemma. But to us, the timing was everything. Well, you're the first one to talk about AI in auditing, the first one to talk about AI in financial data analysis. What do you think is going to happen? So yes, of course, sometimes you have one executive that is ego-fueled, that thinks that's because he's so smart that all that interest is happening. But when you have a wave like the wave of AI happening, and you're at the right place at the right time, you just need to make sure that you have the right team aligned to capture that interest and convert it, right? But we were all very, very proud to say that we're the first doing that, right? Like now, is it, I personally think we got lucky always with also, really good set of hires, right? And then also having a group of engaged investors that along the way cared a lot about MindBridge. Sometimes a bit too much, you can care so much that you prevent someone from breathing sometimes.
Yeah.
But there was a combination, and it didn't seem at the time that pleasant. But I can tell you the outcome is something really that I wish every entrepreneur experiences.
Yeah. Well, I think the reason why it's so rare that entrepreneurs experience outcomes like the one you had, Solon, and MindBridge, is because you have to have an appetite for risk and like you had a visionary mentality and a risk appetite to do something before it was a thing. Like if you told me in 2014, 15, 16, I'm starting an AI venture, all I would be thinking is like, A, this is a huge risk, and B, like
for sure, people, the
like
names
you're
I was
so
called.
early. You're so early. You know what I mean?
Look, but I partnered with two entrepreneurs. So Eli Fati and Robin Grosse, you look at their background, they're not nobodies. Like you put on 2015, Robin had an exit, Eli had an exit. Right?
How did you meet them, by the way? How did you meet your
Fresh
partners?
founders?
Oh, okay.
Fresh founders and community building. So I was just already very community oriented. I had co-started the Ottawa Product Management Associations. I had co-started the Product Hunt Group in Ottawa. And then it was a group called Fresh Founders in Ottawa where early stage first time founders were going. And I just saw them struggling with attracting higher class of talent, and had a massive network outside of Ottawa in Silicon Valley and Europe, and some in Asia too. And I just volunteered to help them bring better quality, higher level speakers to the group, and then became visible very quickly within a year. And frankly, I was doing that so I can hire for another venture called Solon that I was fixing at the time, to find people to replace me in that venture, to find a product manager, engineers, and things like that. And then, one thing to another, I can even, very organically, my first investors introduced me to Eddie network with another group called L Spark in Ottawa. Networking with them, we ran into someone else who introduced us to Robin, who was, frozen. That was in jail at IBM Cognos. That's not true. He was not in jail, but you know what I mean. Like, he's an entrepreneur at heart, and then it showed up very, after he dedusted the corporate-ish that he has now. But very quickly, it was a, and I'll take credit on one thing. Most founders want to stay in control. Very few founders are willing to have a sense of self-awareness of what you're good at and what you're not good at, right? And then where I'll take credit is that I really, really, really quickly identified. I read a book from Bradfeld that talk about different types of founders, different type of strength, right? And all I was obsessed with is faster. I just wanted to go faster, and I want to take all the safe shortcuts possible to the outcome. And maybe looking back went too fast, but to me, I'm like, okay, we need a business acumen. Wait a second, have I built $100 million business? No, I'm going to find one. You see what I mean? Like it's like there's no pride here. There's nothing. It's like if you are mission oriented, you should be able to dissociate your sense of need of safety from it, right? So like, okay, have I built at scale an analytics platform, managing engineering? No. So I need to find an implementer that knows that. And Robin had 18 patents to his name or something like that, right? I remember, and then look, and then you look back, it's okay, well, domain expertise, that was me, right? So it's like, so you look at that, I was looking at a book and it says about the triad of expertise you need to start a startup with success. You need a business acumen, right? You need an implementer of technology, and you need a promoter and someone that's good at understanding domain expertise. I can tell you, when I looked at them, they knew nothing about the industry, right? They didn't know what they didn't know what the difference was a networked firm and a firm in an association. They did not understand how the Big Four was structured. They don't understand why accountants suck with technology sometimes. No offense to you, Mike, right? You're not in that bucket.
I hear you.
and then there's a lot of things that I knew. I was a domain expert, and I had like tens of thousands of accountants in my network that I knew if I would just come to them with a prototype, it would just pop. It would just. So, we basically divided and conquer. Okay, one is going to look after technology, the other one's after the business, both in those hiring and building and assembling a team, which I helped with a lot as well. And then, we just play to our specialization, right? If I didn't do that early, sure, I could have gone a bit slower and I could have been more focused and I could have proven things a bit more. It would have been less brutal of a journey. But I can tell you, we would have not achieved, like, in such a niche market, I needed to stack those in my favor.
And again, you obviously had you had great vision, Solon, because I could tell you this. I worked in Big Four in an audit group. So it's now hindsight being 2020, it's common sense that the things I was doing as an associate, a senior associate, those things would not naturally catch fraud. Yes, they'd catch some things, but there's no way that it didn't need a facelift in terms of implementing technology, especially for public companies with huge data sets. And so AI and the fact that you saw that, though, requires a lot of vision, because thousands of people have sat in those seats, but they're not thinking like, hey, is there a better way?
No, they did. No, there is people. There was a lot of people at the time. There was a lot of people, but they were not stacking the odds in their favor.
Right.
Like there was, I mean, you look back, everyone was talking, like in that space, they were like, everyone knew in data analytics that the next phase was going to be.
So what didn't they do, Solon? So what was the angle you were taking that was different? That you took an AI technology spin to the problem?
That, yes, but it was actually a great question, by the way. I did not underestimate the change of methodology that will come with it. So there was actually many years. So I'll give you an example. There was a practitioner in the Big Eight that years before, in 2001, wrote a blog somewhere in Journal of Accountancy that talk about how you need to move away from testing and sampling to doing risk-based assessment of materiality. And he had written a whole thing into a VB script on an Excel, and I look at the methodology and I'm like, that is the way. That is the way to do it in a modern way. The only problem is he was 15 or 20 years in advance, right? And it was a methodology and a way to engage into the audit that was not done before. And so to me, what I did different is that I did not get suckered in technology. I did not get suckered in and disconnect from the real practitioner's experience, right? And then the first thing that I wanted to go to, now here's the mistake I did. I started at the end. I first wanted enterprises to adopt it. So we started with an enterprise risk management approach. We're going to go after the big boys, the big logos. And that failed. That was not the right way. I don't think it was me that wanted particularly to do that, but that's what we ended up doing. And at the end, we ended up still going back at serving the enterprises where the largest problems are. But I just did not disconnect from the practitioner's reality. At some point, we forbid our account managers and salespeople in marketing from talking about AI. I said, if you cannot describe the value that we do without mentioning AI, because the hype had picked up by that time, then you're not doing it right. You need to be able to talk the practice owner's language. And we went as far at MindBridge as creating our own methodology to implement. So because we saw that all the methodology were dusting, so we invested in a methodology consultant to build methodology for our firms that were struggling to understand how to adopt that new technology.
Yeah, that seems like a great approach. And again, you're right. You could have leveraged on the hype and mentioned AI every time you went in to sell it. But the reality is, like, you wanted to speak the language that you're solving a real problem.
Yeah, but there's other companies that did better than MindBridge in the same time frame, right? And when I look back at what they have done, they had focused a lot on being a product-led. I mean, they did not for 7 years. They were doing less revenue than MindBridge, and all of a sudden they popped at the same level, right? The difference is that they did not do traditional engagement to the marketplace. They did product-led growth, and that's great. That's cute. I can tell you, they have not done the same impact on the marketplace in terms of profound change to it than MindBridge had done in the firms where they are. They basically are an after-the-fact effect, whereas at MindBridge, when people bring MindBridge, they really go to the core of the practice and redesign it. Right?
And Solon, I want to pivot here and ask you something. So you had a really good outcome, which is already a big achievement, something most people don't get to do. But entrepreneurship is really, really hard, especially when you build at scale like you did. Do you mind me asking? So you're now on to another venture. I want to talk about Taxpay, but you didn't have to go into another venture. Why are you glutton for punishment that you want to again scale and go through this journey all over again? And then let's jump into Taxpay and what you're looking to achieve with it.
Yeah, so the decision was nailed over a dinner at Fresh Founders, again, community, with a couple of other entrepreneurs. Look, it's very important when you have doubt as an entrepreneur to recharge and resource around other entrepreneurs because they understand you, they're your same type of animal. And
Did you take time off, by the way, Solon? Did you take off any time after? No?
No.
Okay.
I took 2 weeks to visit my family, 2 to 3 weeks. I don't believe when you are young, in good health, fully able to speak, walk, talk, and argue back, that you should stop producing in society. Except if you need to do some soul searching or enjoy your hobby or do things. If you're capable, it's almost like civic duty, right? Like we having like that. I don't abide by that culture of not producing when we have thousands of years of moving forward as a society. In this, like, think about this, like if you're 75 years old, there's things you can't do anymore, right? You will don't. If you talk to an 80 years old man and you ask him, would you wish to have the energy to take the risk and shake things and make things happen like you could at 35? And most likely they'll tell you yes. I wish I can go on the whole day and at a conference and meet people and try to solve problems. And like, I mean, that's a litmus test, right? Like I live by make the 80 years old version of yourself proud, right? And the 80 years old version of yourself not be grateful. So
I like Bezos.
Oh really? I don't know, that's something I was on. And essentially I was sitting at a dinner and I was like, okay guys, okay great, so what do I do now? I'm just going to be maybe taking it easy, be a Frenchman in south of France, drink some wine and date beautiful woman. Like what's the plan here,
Doesn't sound like a bad life, but
yeah, so people, I get bored of that. It's not I'm more companionship oriented, so to me that doesn't sound appealing. So I was debating, just go sail or something, or should I go back and fix this problem that we started working with a few friends as a prototype, and it seems to be a real need for it coming up. And then one of my friends, actually first investor in MindBridge, says, well, so can't you do both? It's like, why don't you, just take one day off in the week and that's your day to be in south of France. And then just at the same time, there's a direct flight to Paris that got installed in my city. And before I used to have to take 2 flights to go to Paris. Now there's a direct flight. So I can go to south of France as often as I want in the year, right? For a weekend. You can go for the weekend and come back, right? And it's like, let's use an and, not an or function, right? Like, it's not that or that, it's that and that. Well, I'm like, okay, well, I'll be able to go enjoy my family, see my family more often in south of France and do that. So yeah, that made sense to me. Like, it doesn't have to be one or the other, right? So the other thing also is that there's a guy called Dan Martel who has a very active habit of publishing all his lesson learned on YouTube and content. And he basically, I was Googling, funny enough, I keep Googling stuff, I keep finding back his content, which is very funny.
Buy back your time.
Yeah, I told you about that book, right? Actually, funny enough, it's right here. Great book, really great book. Highly recommend it. So, and by the way, I'm at the house of another entrepreneur who has the book because it's on my house.
That's awesome.
And so, yeah, I just like, I remember him talking about his loss of momentum after an exit, where he bought a boat, did wake surfing, and then starting back was like took effort because he lost momentum. And I'm like, I got freaked out when I heard that. I'm like, no. I'm
like
not,
a fighter who doesn't go back in the ring, right? You lose that rust.
I guess so. I don't know, but I'm like, no. And I know I'm going to I'm not going to retire at 39 years old. Like I'm not going to stop doing ventures at 39. I've helped a few others in the last 2-3 years while doing MindBridge. When also the other thing is I know I have a very intense personality. People say that. And I know also that to me, I don't feel intense at all. Like to me, I find I'm not intense enough because I end up my day always with that feeling that I could have done more. And so I knew that I would do another one. I had 5 ideas. So instead of thinking, let's stop and see how that feels, I know right now because when MindBridge started scaling and we started having a management team that didn't need a shaker and mover, right? And we needed to switch to that from pirates to organized army. I struggled. And then when I found a spot and I saw people doing more thorough, slower job and more thorough and qualitative job, I would end my day on Wednesday afternoon and people were happy with me. If I did more, people were not happy with me. If I started pushing too hard, they would say, we didn't ask you to do that. Don't touch that. That's not your project. You know? So I had 2 days a week.
Stepping on toes.
Yeah. So all of a sudden I had 3 to 4 days. So I helped 2 other startups get started from 100K to $2 million revenue in 2 years during the last year of MindBridge. Wow. Like otherwise I will frustrate people. I will go see the CEO and it's like, hey, can I help with that? No, you stay on your spot, just do this. It's done. I said, give me a second, I'm working on this, I'll come back to you. And he comes back a week after. Like I was supposed to for a week, just cross my fingers like that. Right? So and then also then he will call me back and said, the quarter is bad, I need more leads, top of funnel, what can you do? And then I'll go and do my best. And then I'll be happy banging things and making it happen, right? And I say, okay, enough, stop. And so there was that stop and go effect. So to me, I knew already that even MindBridge was not finished, mission was not accomplished. As soon as we became an organized, well-disciplined, world-class set of professionals, each one of the top brass of MindBridge, I would say, do the job way better than I do. Right? I knew that really I'm an entrepreneur and I'll go start another one because that's what I'm made of. Right? So I literally had my departure email of MindBridge written 2.5 years before I left MindBridge.
That's amazing. And Solon, with Taxpay, I'm excited about Taxpay because obviously, again, you're staying in the space that I operate in, and I see a ton of utility in solving a major pain point for businesses. What are your goals over the next 2 to 3 years for Taxpay?
So Taxpay is very interesting, right? So it's completely different than the previous venture because the previous venture was all about internal tooling for the accounting firms, right? They were all about what they use to serve the clients. This is different. Taxpay is basically enhancing the client experience. Yes, there's a tooling component and productivity and efficiency and revenue, new revenue model for the firm because it's a client accounting service essentially. But Taxpay is really focusing on the taxpayers and helping people only pay the tax they owe. Right? That's what I'm obsessed with right now. Like, look, hate it or like it, don't forget that Al Capone was caught because of tax, not because of crime or anything like that. You have to pay
Yes.
your taxes, and it's a good thing to pay your tax on time. But when your accountant sends you 3 days before a deadline a 6-digit or 7-digit check to pay of taxes, and you have to physically walk into a bank
And
with a voucher
scramble.
or use time coupons or things, it's just bad. And then all the revenue agencies after look, we printed. Here's the motivation with Taxpay. We printed an obscene amount of money in the Western world during COVID, which
Hmm.
you'll see our very story was not needed.
Hmm.
A bit of hand sanitizers and some masks and some social distancing would have done wonders. We didn't need to freeze the whole economy, right?
Hmm.
So in that light, uh, the governments have to increase collection. It's as simple as that. They have to modernize the system, but it's government. So in the meantime, there's a lot of unfortunate situations that are going to happen where late penalties, fees are going to increase. The systems are clunky. The accountants are limited. There's a shortage of people in the accounting that you know well. So with Taxpay, we're just trying to just streamline the process all around, tax payments. And there's many ways people do it today. Like it's not like some people don't pay their taxes. People do e-transfers, credit cards. Some people have some accountants that do some, payment for them in a limited fashion. But the process around that is still too clunky. And I'll employ every tool in my tool belt, RPA, AI, fintech,
Hmm.
whatever you want to remove micro workflow problems along the way, right? That's what I'm focusing on.
That's amazing. And I agree with you. It's because I see it firsthand. It is a major,
Mm-hmm.
major problem. And it's
Mm-hmm.
ironic that you have self-driving cars, but you can't
Yeah.
just go to a business owner and go, hey, click a couple buttons and or we'll pre-schedule your
Or
full
don't
year
click, or
payments.
don't click, or don't even click. Like they should not even.
Automated.
It needs to
Yes.
be
Yes.
magic. Look at the Shopify experience when you check out on a shop store where you put your phone number and everything is handled. It remembers
Oh,
everything
it's
for you and all of
amazing.
that,
It's so cool. Yes.
right?
Yeah.
It's like magic.
Yeah.
Like, why would it not be like that?
It should be.
And the,
It should
the
be.
reason why is because of disparate systems and things breaking apart. And then there's people that do a great job on the APAR front, and you use some of those tools, right? And those people have their hand full on the APAR side as well, right? Like
Hmm.
basically, if it's like it's everywhere. There's inefficiencies around, the tax work, and then I'm a huge fan of companies um, that are very dedicated to serve the profession, like Walter Clores, Thomson Reuters, and they continuously invest in innovation and
Hmm.
in trying to enhance. But you also need to help them. Sometimes it's not for a giant of 40 billion. It's not worth solving $100 million problem or $200 million
Right.
problem for them.
Right.
It's just not. They have so much other billion-dollar size problem to solve, $500 million size problem to solve. So I'm placing in that sweet spot of micro problems, but are super annoying on a day-to-day basis, right? And we're building a suite of tools for that.
Yeah. I think it's an amazing next venture, and I think just because of your track history, Solon, I'm confident you're going to execute on it. And so I have one last question because I know we're a little bit over, Solon, and I want to be
Mm-hmm.
respectful of your time. You've been involved in a lot of ventures.
Yeah.
Any couple pieces of advice you could give to other, not only startups, but like businesses that are going through their growth journey and they they deal with the struggles of entrepreneurship, the ups and downs.
Mm.
Any advice you could give that you've learned through your journeys with your businesses?
Yeah, it always takes 3 times longer and 3 times harder than you think it will be. But but you will be surprised what you can achieve. Like
So stay
the
the long haul.
it stay put, stick to it. I mean, first of all, why do you do what you do? If you're playing a game, and I talked about that in another podcast not too long ago, like this, why do you do it? You know it's bound to failure.
Mhm.
Like you have to ask yourself what is your intrinsic motivation, and when you have clarity on what motivates you, then you have to be true to yourself, right? I was in a very unfortunate situation where I had to be almost in front of a situation of literally, you know, you know, divorce, like someone that wants to separate. I was married at the time, and then, it's like, you know, the other person is acting in a way that, is not compatible, right? And it's like, do you stop everything because of that? So that's who you are. You're going to go this way, and then you try to mitigate the side, But then I remember saying, okay, one day I have to look, your children will judge me. It says like, hey, I'm going to have to explain perseverance, dedication, courage to them. I'm going to have to explain to them commitment, sticking to what you start, and responsibility and leadership. And then what? I'm going to tell them, things got rough and just quit. That doesn't work. You have to be true to yourself. So you have an inner motivation if you go down that path. Stay true to it. Be your truth and shine through your truth, as much as possible. But also be very, very mindful that you have to time your goals. Like if you say, I want to do that within that time frame. I had a goal for MindBridge, and by the way, we achieved exactly close to 100K of revenue. So within 3 years, I want to have 1 point something million or 2 point something million revenue, right? We came exactly to that. And by the way, hint, if you achieve 50% of that, you change this in your assumptions. If you achieve a quarter of that, you change that. And if you don't achieve, you achieve less than a quarter, you stop. Because then you're not on the right trajectory of what you're trying to do. You have to be very, very clear on your definition of your commitment to yourself, right? And another commitment to myself was like, and I told that to the executive team, and they didn't listen. Probably they thought I was not being truthful, but I told them, said, the moment we are 5 years old, you have to look for someone else to do whatever I'm doing because my age will start. The moment we have X million dollars of revenue, you should not need me anymore. You should find professionals. And then literally I was talking about leaving, in February 2020, and then COVID happened, and I had, everything freeze, everything plans change. I cannot leave anymore, right? But it's very important when you start into an entrepreneurial adventure that you have a very strong sense of who you are, what you want to do, and commitment to yourself, and be true to yourself, right?
That's amazing. Well,
and surround yourself. And last but not least, you must surround yourself and organize all your personal life around it. I just talked about this with my team this morning because they always laugh that Solon's worst day is Friday. I get so anxious when the weekend comes because it's a loss of momentum in the team. I cannot.
I caught you on the wrong day.
I get so anxious. Yes, I'm anxious. I already have a bunch of things to do. And then I'm so anxious about it, right? Because there's a loss of momentum of the weekend. But that's what humans do. We take weekends. I don't always. But so in this situation, right, it's it's going to be, it's you have to surround yourself because the mindset, I'm so happy. And right now I'm achieving for the first time in my life almost that symbiosis. Where I can do what I do without worrying about being misjudged, misunderstood, having things getting in the way that constantly stop it. And then, and you have to be very candid because it's not fair to you and to others. It's the same as saying, hey, you're going to compete. You've been selected by the national committee to be one of the athletes representing Canada or the US at the Olympics. But hey, you're not going to train every week. That's inconsistent, right? So it's if you're going for something like that, it's hard, requires dedication. You need to, and people people think, oh, it's just working and doing a startup. No, it's not just doing a startup. It's trying to do $100 million, multi-billion-dollar business. That requires the same discipline and mindset than someone that says, I want to go for gold, right?
For sure.
Nobody judges. No, if you have a cousin or a brother or sister that says, well, he's training for the Olympics, everyone understands that. But when you say, no, I'm trying to make this a real success and it's hard and I want to change the standards of the profession, which is what ended up happening at MindBridge. I was nominated on the advisory board of the International Assurance and Standards Board to be to helping them, right? Those things require a level of commitment that the rest of the world will misjudge you for, but that should not stop you from doing it.
That's great advice. And with that, Solon, I want to thank you. I know you're a busy guy, and I really appreciate you taking the time to share all this. Also, the backstory, because the authenticity of sharing the fact that it wasn't all glory before MindBridge. The fact that you shared that, I appreciate that.
My first startup, so MindBridge stealth name was Squanto. I always have a stealth name before really coming out. And then the first startup was called Squanto, which was the first name of MindBridge as well. It was Squanto for a year before we came out to the world with the real world.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Name. Yeah. And basically, my first one was in import of precious woods from Brazil to France.
Pivot.
Yeah, I know. That was my first business at 19 years old. And then I learned a very valuable lesson through failure. 8 months into it, 9 months into it, they introduced a certification called EcoCert in Europe, where you're not allowed to import rare woods from third-party countries into Europe. I had my first €30,000, which was a massive amount for me as a student living on €1,000 a month. We were like, wow, we have a business going on. I was like, it was so meaningful for me. And then discovering the power of government rules and intervention was a very painful lesson, right? But yeah, of course, there was one or two failures like that, not many. Luckily, a lot more successes than those things, but you learn every time.
Like they say, you only need one.
Well, luckily, I had more than one so far. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, I'm going to continue to follow Taxpay and all the things you do, Solon. And I follow you on social too, because I know you're an outspoken guy in our space, and I love that as well. We share a lot of the same viewpoints as well. And so I just wanted to thank you for hopping on. And
Always for you,
hopefully
Mike.
we'll continue this conversation offline at some point.
Dinner is on me anytime.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Solon.
Thank you. Take care.